Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English and Mastery. Thank you for clicking on this video today. I really appreciate you choosing to learn and spend your time here. Before we begin, if you enjoy improving your English through natural conversations, real-life examples, and long listening practice, feel free to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps more learners around the world gain confidence in English, and it allows me to continue creating lessons like this. In today's session, we're going to focus on something many learners want, but often struggle to reach: truly advanced, natural, comfortable English. The kind of English that doesn't feel forced, memorized, or translated. The kind of English that flows naturally when you speak, listen, think, or interact with others. Whether you're learning English for education, career opportunities, travel, relationships, personal growth, or simply because you enjoy the language, this lesson is designed to help you move closer to that goal. Let's begin with a simple thought. At some point in your English journey, you probably realized something important. Understanding English and using English are not the same thing. Many learners can read articles, watch movies, or understand conversations. But when it's time to speak or express themselves, they hesitate. The ideas are there, but the words feel stuck. This is not a sign of weakness. It's a normal stage in language development, and nearly everyone experiences it. Experts in language learning often say that real fluency develops when you build familiarity with the language, not just knowledge. Familiarity comes from hearing natural English often, in meaningful situations, not just memorizing vocabulary lists or grammar tables. It's similar to learning a musical instrument. You don't become skilled just by studying music theory. You become skilled by listening, practicing, repeating, feeling the rhythm, and using it consistently over time. So, before we go deeper, let me ask you something. How often do you expose yourself to English in your daily life? Not studying, not doing homework, not completing exercises, but actually surrounding yourself with English. Do you listen to English while cooking or walking? Do you watch English content without subtitles from time to time? Do you practice forming sentences in your head throughout the day? Many fluent speakers didn't become fluent by studying more. They became fluent by making English a small, natural part of their everyday routine. Research in applied linguistics suggests that frequent, consistent language exposure activates long-term memory more effectively than occasional, long, intense study sessions. In simple terms, 15 minutes of English every day can be more powerful than 3 hours once a week. Your brain loves repetition, familiarity, and meaningful context. That's why long listening practice, like this video, is so valuable. Now, let's reflect. When you hear common advanced expressions, like on a daily basis, over the long run, from my perspective, or now that you mention it, do they feel natural to you? Or do you have to think, translate, or mentally construct the sentence? At advanced levels, your goal isn't to memorize these expressions. Your goal is to recognize them automatically and use them naturally when speaking. When English feels instinctive, not calculated, that's when fluency begins to take shape. Another important part of advanced English is emotional communication. Many learners focus heavily on grammar, pronunciation, or academic vocabulary. These are important, of course. But what truly creates connection in conversation is emotion, expression, tone, and subtle meaning. For example, if someone tells you, "I've been exhausted lately," responding with "okay" is grammatically correct but socially uncomfortable. A more natural response would be, "I'm sorry to hear that. Is everything all right?" Or, "That sounds difficult. What's been going on?" These responses show understanding, listening, and empathy, essential parts of real communication. So, today, as you listen, don't just process the words. Pay attention to tone, rhythm, structure, and emotional expression. Try to imagine the real-life situations where these sentences would appear. The more realistic the context becomes in your mind, the easier it will be to use the language later. Now, let's explore a relatable topic for many learners: daily habits and communication skills. No matter where you live, whether it's Vietnam, Brazil, Mexico, Turkey, South Korea, Japan, Germany, India, the United States, or anywhere else, daily habits shape your language abilities more than you think. If English only exists inside a classroom or a study session, progress feels slow. But when it becomes a natural part of life, improvement feels smoother, faster, and more enjoyable. Think about your current routine. Do you listen to English while getting ready in the morning? Do you speak to yourself in English when organizing your thoughts? Do you keep notes of interesting phrases you hear in movies, podcasts, or conversations? These small habits don't require effort, but they build fluency over time. Many learners underestimate how powerful intentional exposure can be. And here's something interesting. Research shows that when learners actively predict meaning while listening, their comprehension and speaking confidence increase. For example, if I ask you, "What's one habit you want to improve this year?" your brain immediately begins searching for an answer, forming sentences, imagining vocabulary. Even if you don't speak out loud, your brain is practicing. That's why throughout this lesson, you'll hear many reflective questions. You're encouraged to answer silently or aloud. Both are valuable. Let's try a few together. Answer naturally, without worrying about being perfect. What role does English play in your life right now? Do you use English for work, study, entertainment, travel, friendship, or curiosity? How confident do you feel when speaking English to someone you've never met? When you make a mistake in English, do you feel embarrassed, or do you take it as a normal step toward improvement? These questions help you become aware of your communication patterns. Self-awareness is one of the strongest predictors of language progress. Many highly fluent speakers didn't start as confident learners. They simply kept going long enough for the discomfort to disappear. Fluency is not built by talent. It's built by time, exposure, patience, courage, and consistency. Now, before we transition to the next part of the lesson, let's take a breath and set a clear intention for this session. For the next hour or more, allow yourself to relax into the language. You don't need to memorize everything. You don't need to repeat every phrase perfectly. Just listen, absorb, and let the language move naturally through your mind. Fluency grows when English feels familiar, not forced. Let's continue. One of the biggest influences on modern communication and modern English is technology. Over the past decade, the way people talk, listen, share ideas, and interact with each other has changed dramatically. Many conversations now begin online, not face-to-face. We message, text, voice note, comment, post, scroll, react, and reply instantly. Communication has become faster, shorter, more casual, and sometimes less thoughtful. This shift affects language learning in both positive and challenging ways. On one hand, technology gives you unlimited access to English. Podcasts, videos, social media, books, courses, interviews, documentaries, and conversations from around the world. You can learn from native and non-native speakers, different cultures, different accents, and different communication styles. English is no longer limited to textbooks or classrooms. It's everywhere. But on the other hand, technology can make communication shallow. Short messages, quick reactions, emojis, abbreviations, and slang sometimes replace full sentences or deeper thought. Many learners get used to reading and writing short forms like IDK, TBH, LOL, burb, or NVM. These are helpful in informal texting, but they don't help with professional communication, long conversations, or advanced expression. So here's an interesting question to reflect on. When you use English online, do you use full sentences, punctuation, and natural expression? Or do you rely on short forms and simple words? Your digital communication habits often influence your spoken fluency more than you realize. Let's explore this with a realistic example. Imagine someone messages you and says, "Hey, sorry I didn't respond earlier. I've been overwhelmed with work lately." An advanced speaker might respond, "No worries at all. I completely understand. Is everything okay?" Or, "That sounds stressful. I hope things get easier soon." Notice how these responses express understanding, empathy, and emotional awareness, not just language ability. Human connection is not built by perfect grammar. It's built by thoughtful communication. And now, let's talk about something every language learner experiences: moments of silence. Many learners fear silence in conversation, thinking it means they're slow, confused, or unprepared. But in reality, silence is natural. Native speakers pause, think, breathe, and organize their thoughts all the time. Silence is not a problem. Silence is part of communication. The key is learning how to use natural filler expressions instead of freezing. For example, let me think about that for a second. That's a really interesting question. I'm not entirely sure, but here's what I think. Now that you mention it, I see it differently. These expressions give your brain time to form ideas, while still sounding confident and engaged. Advanced English isn't about answering quickly. It's about responding thoughtfully. Now, let's shift to another important idea. Active listening. Many learners believe speaking skill equals fluency. But in real life, listening is just as important, and sometimes even more important. Strong listeners communicate better because they understand tone, emotion, intention, context, humor, hesitation, and cultural differences. Think about conversations you've had in your native language. The people who make you feel comfortable are usually not the ones who talk the most. They are the ones who listen, without interrupting, judging, correcting, or rushing. Listening is a social skill, not just a language skill. So, as you listen to this lesson, try to practice active listening. Notice structure, notice examples, notice transitions. Notice emotional cues. These details help you build natural comprehension, the kind fluent speakers rely on. Now let's explore a topic that many advanced learners enjoy: expressing opinions with clarity, balance, and politeness. At higher levels, opinions are not only about what you believe, they're about how respectfully, confidently, and thoughtfully you express yourself. Compare these two responses. I disagree versus I understand your point, though I have a slightly different perspective. Both express disagreement. But the second one builds conversation instead of shutting it down. In English-speaking cultures, especially in professional or multicultural environments, tone is just as important as content. People respect confidence, but they appreciate kindness. Here are some natural opinion starters used by fluent speakers. From my perspective, as far as I'm concerned, I may be wrong, but it seems like, in my experience, these expressions help you participate in discussions, not just answer questions. Now let's move into something more personal: modern life and emotional pressure. People everywhere, students, professionals, parents, business owners, creators, job seekers, feel overwhelmed at times. Expectations, deadlines, competition, comparison, responsibilities, uncertainty, they affect confidence, productivity, relationships, and communication. And guess what? They also affect language learning. On days when you're tired, stressed, or anxious, speaking English feels harder. Your brain wants simplicity, not complexity. Your sentences shorten, your confidence drops. Your fear of mistakes increases. This doesn't mean you're getting worse, it means you're human. Many learners blame themselves, thinking, "Why am I not fluent yet?" But fluency doesn't follow a straight path. It grows in waves. Some days you feel strong, some days you struggle. Progress is real, even when it's invisible. A useful advanced expression captures this idea. Improvement isn't always noticeable in the moment, but it adds up over time. Now, answer this honestly in your mind. Do you treat yourself with patience while learning English, or do you criticize yourself for not being perfect? Your mindset plays a bigger role in fluency than you think. Let's continue with a practical communication topic: storytelling. Humans love stories. Stories help people connect, understand, remember, and feel. In job interviews, friendships, presentations, relationships, meetings, and daily conversations, storytelling matters. It shows personality, emotional intelligence, structure, and creativity. All signs of advanced fluency. A simple storytelling structure that fluent speakers use is: set the situation, describe the experience, explain how you felt, share what you learned. For example, at first, I wasn't confident speaking English, especially with strangers. But after practicing a little every day, I realized progress happens quietly. Now I'm much more comfortable expressing myself. This sounds natural because it feels human, not academic. So here's a quick practice question. What experience has changed the way you view learning English? Think about it. Answer in your mind. Practice forming sentences. Your brain is training even if you're silent. Before we continue, remind yourself why you're here today. You're not just learning English, you're building confidence, opportunity, mobility, connection, perspective, and possibility. English is not simply a language, it's a bridge to people, careers, cultures, information, travel, and personal growth. Let's keep going. Now, let's explore something deeply connected to advanced communication: awareness of social context. In real life, conversations happen in different environments: workplaces, friendships, classrooms, family gatherings, interviews, or online communities. Each setting affects the tone, vocabulary, formality, and structure of the language we use. For example, if a friend says, "Hey, I'm thinking about quitting my job," you might respond casually with, "Really? What happened?" Or, "Wow, that's a big decision." Are you okay? But in a professional meeting, the response may sound like, "I understand. Would you be comfortable sharing what led to that decision?" Both are natural, but the context shapes the communication. This flexibility is a key characteristic of C1 and C2 speakers. They don't speak the same way in every situation. They adjust, naturally, respectfully, and confidently. This adaptability is just as important as vocabulary or grammar. Let's practice this with a reflective question. When you speak English, do you tend to be formal, casual, or somewhere in between? And does it change depending on who you're talking to? Becoming aware of your communication style helps you grow faster. Now let's transition into a topic that affects millions of English learners: fear of mistakes. Many people hesitate to speak because they worry about grammar errors, pronunciation, or embarrassment. But here's an essential truth: mistakes are not barriers to fluency. They are steps toward fluency. Researchers in language acquisition consistently find that learners who take risks, speak often, and use English imperfectly improve faster than those who stay silent until they feel ready. Confidence develops through action, not preparation. You don't wait for courage, you build courage by speaking. If you think about children learning their first language, they make mistakes constantly. They mispronounce words, mix tenses, forget vocabulary, and create funny sentences. Yet no one tells them to stop speaking. They continue, and little by little, they become fluent. Not because they memorize rules, but because they use the language boldly and consistently. So, here's a useful mindset for advanced learners. Confidence comes from participation, not perfection. Instead of asking, "How can I avoid mistakes?" try asking, "What can I learn from the mistakes I make?" That small shift changes everything. Now, let's talk about another part of fluency: emotional expression. Many learners know how to describe facts, opinions, or experiences, but expressing subtle feelings is a different skill. Advanced English requires emotional vocabulary because real conversations are emotional. Think about these everyday feelings: overwhelmed, relieved, uncertain, disappointed, inspired, confused, grateful, restless, hopeful. These words appear constantly in human conversation. When you can identify and express emotional states clearly, your communication becomes more authentic, relatable, and human. For example, instead of saying, "I was sad," an advanced speaker might say, "I felt discouraged because I worked hard, but didn't get the results I expected." This version gives context, emotion, and meaning, not just a label. Now, let's practice silently. Think about your week. Did you feel stressed, motivated, curious, tired, excited, or worried? Try forming one sentence in your mind describing how you felt and why. This kind of emotional reflection strengthens fluency more than memorizing complex vocabulary. Next, let's explore a topic many people find fascinating: how environment influences language confidence. A person may speak English fluently with friends, but struggle during a presentation. Someone may communicate easily online, but feel nervous face to face. Another person may speak confidently in their home country, but suddenly doubt themselves when traveling abroad. This happens because confidence is relational, not just linguistic. It depends on surroundings, audience, expectations, atmosphere, and emotional comfort. Even native speakers adjust their tone depending on context. So if you've ever thought, I can speak English but only in certain situations, you're not alone. That experience is common and normal. The solution isn't more grammar or more vocabulary. The solution is gradual exposure, practicing English in more environments until each one feels familiar. A useful sentence to remember is, familiarity reduces fear. The more you speak, the less intimidating it becomes. Now, let's move into something extremely practical: conversational connectors. These are small expressions that help your speech sound smooth, organized, and natural. For example, to be honest, actually, now that I think about it. The funny thing is, on top of that, at the end of the day, these expressions help you transition between ideas effortlessly. Fluent speakers use them constantly without thinking. They make stories more interesting, conversations more dynamic, and explanations more structured. Let's try a mini practice. Imagine someone asks you, "How's your week going?" You could respond simply, "It's good." But with connectors, you create a richer answer. To be honest, it started a bit stressful because I had a lot to finish. But now that I think about it, things are finally becoming more manageable. Same message, but much more natural and expressive. Now, let's explore one of the most important skills for advanced communication: perspective taking. This means considering the listener's experience, knowledge, emotions, and expectations. Many fluent speakers naturally adapt their explanations to help others understand clearly. For example, if someone says, "I didn't quite understand. Could you explain that again?" An advanced speaker doesn't repeat the same words louder or faster. Instead, they rephrase. "Sure, what I mean is, let me explain it another way." Basically, the idea is, this ability to reframe information shows maturity, clarity, and linguistic flexibility, essential for C1 and C2 communication. Now let's talk about the emotional side of learning English, something rarely discussed but deeply important. Language learning is not just an academic journey. It's a personal one. It challenges your patience, identity, confidence, habits, discipline, beliefs, expectations, and resilience. Some days you feel proud, other days you feel stuck. Some days everything makes sense, other days everything feels confusing. And that's okay. Growth in any area of life, fitness, business, relationships, creativity, follows the same pattern: progress, struggle, adjustment, improvement, repeat. Language learning is simply another expression of human growth. A powerful mindset to adopt is, I don't need to be perfect, I just need to keep going. And as long as you keep going, progress is guaranteed. So, take a breath, relax your shoulders, get comfortable, and stay with me. We still have a lot to explore together, and every minute you continue listening strengthens your English naturally, without pressure, without memorization, and without forcing it. Let's continue. Now, let's explore something that influences communication in every culture: expectations. Expectations from family, society, workplaces, schools, or even from ourselves shape the way we speak, behave, think, and express ideas. When expectations are high, People may speak more cautiously, choose words carefully, or avoid sharing honest thoughts. When expectations are supportive, communication feels more relaxed, confident, and open. Think about this for a moment. When you speak English, do you feel pressure to sound perfect? Do you worry about being judged, misunderstood, or corrected? Many learners carry silent expectations, believing that they must speak flawlessly before participating in conversations. But real fluency doesn't come from perfection. It comes from participation, expression, and connection. In fact, research in communication psychology suggests that people remember how you made them feel more than the exact words you used, meaning emotional presence and sincerity matter more than grammatical accuracy. So, instead of trying to impress listeners, try to connect with them. That shift builds trust, rapport, and confidence. Let's practice with a reflective question. When was the last time you had a meaningful conversation in English? Not just answering questions, but sharing opinions, emotions, or personal experiences. Those are the moments that develop real long-term fluency. Now, let's transition into something incredibly powerful: curiosity. Curiosity keeps conversations alive. It turns small talk into real talk. Curious people ask questions, explore perspectives, and listen with interest. This makes them great communicators, regardless of language. Here are some natural curiosity-driven questions that fluent speakers use. What made you feel that way? How did you come to that conclusion? What was the most challenging part? What surprised you the most? What did you learn from that experience? Notice how each question invites more than a simple yes or no answer. They encourage storytelling, reflection, emotion, and depth. Key elements of advanced communication. So, the next time you want to practice English, don't pressure yourself to speak perfectly. Instead, ask thoughtful questions. Questions create conversation, and conversation creates fluency. Now, let's shift to another essential skill: noticing language in daily life. Many advanced learners grow the fastest not by studying, but by observing. They listen for patterns, repeated structures, common phrases, emotional expressions, and sentence rhythm in movies, podcasts, interviews, and conversations. For example, instead of only learning new vocabulary, try noticing how words are combined. I've been meaning to. I didn't expect that to happen. That really caught me off guard. I wouldn't go that far, but I see your point. These aren't expressions from textbooks. They're expressions from real life, and mastering them helps you sound natural, not mechanical. Let's try something simple. Think of the last English video, movie, or podcast you listened to. Was there a phrase you heard more than once? Did the speaker repeat a certain sentence pattern? These repetitions are not accidents. They're linguistic habits that fluent speakers rely on. Paying attention to them can transform your English. Now, let's explore a universal topic: stress and modern life. Whether you live in a big city or a quiet town, whether you're a student, a parent, a professional, or someone building a new path, life today moves quickly. People rush, multitask, juggle responsibilities, and often feel mentally tired. And when the mind is exhausted, communication becomes harder, even in your native language. So, if you've ever struggled to express yourself in English after a long day, it doesn't mean your English is bad. It means you're human. The brain needs rest to process language well. Here's a useful advanced expression. I'm mentally drained, so expressing myself feels harder than usual. This kind of sentence communicates clearly, respectfully, and honestly. Now, let's talk about something that often surprises learners. Fluency depends on lifestyle, not just study time. Sleep, stress, hydration, exercise, social connection, work-life balance all influence cognitive performance, memory, attention, and emotional regulation. When your lifestyle supports your brain, language learning becomes easier, faster, and more enjoyable. So instead of asking, "How can I study more?" ask, "How can I create an environment where English becomes part of my daily life?" Even small changes help. Listening to English while exercising, thinking in English while walking, summarizing your day in English, reading one paragraph before sleep. These tiny habits create long-term transformation. Now let's move into something many people want, sounding natural rather than academic. Academic English is useful, especially for exams and universities. But daily life requires conversational flow, tone, rhythm, pauses, reactions, and emotional nuance. Natural English includes sighs, hesitations, unfinished sentences, and spontaneous responses. For example, "I mean, it's not perfect, but it works." "To be honest, I didn't expect that." "Yeah, I get what you're saying." "Let me think about that for a second." These expressions show personality, authenticity, and spontaneity. Here's a reflective question. Do you speak English like a textbook or like a person? If the answer is textbook, that's okay. It simply means you're entering the next stage of fluency, personal expression. Now, let's transition into a topic that keeps people motivated: purpose. Why are you learning English? For many, English is more than just a subject. It's a doorway to travel, education, community, opportunity, financial security, creativity, or belonging. When purpose is strong, motivation stays alive even when progress feels slow. But when purpose is unclear, studying becomes difficult, repetitive, and exhausting. So ask yourself, what do I truly want to do with English in the future? Maybe you want to study abroad, communicate confidently at work, make international friends, understand global cultures, or access better career opportunities. Whatever your reason is, remind yourself of it often. Purpose turns learning into growth. Before we continue, I want you to take a moment and recognize something important. The fact that you're here, listening, focusing, investing time and attention into improving your English already proves something about you. You care about your growth, you're committed, you're resilient. And that's why you will succeed. Let's continue. Now, let's explore a topic that plays a major role in real-life communication: modern relationships and connection. Whether friendships, family relationships, romantic partnerships, or professional interactions, communication is the foundation of all human connection. But communication today looks very different from communication 20 or even 10 years ago. People text instead of call. They react instead of respond. They scroll instead of engage. And while technology makes communication faster, it doesn't always make it deeper. This creates an interesting challenge for English learners. Many people can type messages fluently, but when speaking face-to-face, they feel hesitant, awkward, or unsure. That's because emotional communication, tone, facial expressions, timing, empathy, and presence cannot be practiced through texting alone. It requires real voices, real pauses, real reactions, and real listening. So here's a useful tip. If you want to improve spoken English, practice speaking in environments where emotional communication matters. Voice chats, video calls, real conversations, group discussions, or even speaking to yourself. The more human the interaction, the more powerful the learning. Let's look at natural supportive expressions people use in relationships. I really appreciate you sharing that with me. Thank you for trusting me with your thoughts. That must have been difficult. How are you feeling now? I'm here if you need anything. These sentences are not just grammatically correct, they show emotional intelligence, a key part of advanced communication. Now, let's explore a topic many learners find relatable: self-confidence. Confidence is not only about language ability, it's also about how you see yourself. Two people may have the same vocabulary, grammar knowledge, and listening skills, but one speaks comfortably while the other stays silent. The difference is not ability, it's perception. Confidence grows when you stop judging yourself and start participating more. No fluent speaker became fluent by waiting until they were ready. They became fluent by using English even when it felt uncomfortable. Here's a mindset shift that can help. Speaking imperfect English is better than speaking perfect silence. Now, reflect on this question. When you speak English, do you focus on expressing meaning or avoiding mistakes? Your answer reveals your mindset more than your skill level. Now, let's transition into something extremely practical: describing real-life experiences. Many learners can discuss general topics like travel, culture, education, or technology, but when asked about their personal experiences, they struggle. Yet native and fluent speakers talk about personal experiences all the time. It's how they build connection. Let's look at a natural example. Last weekend, I needed a break from everything, so I went for a long walk by the river. It wasn't planned, but it ended up being exactly what I needed. Notice how this sentence includes emotion, reason, and reflection, not just information. That's what makes it sound natural. Try to think of a recent moment from your life, something simple, like eating a meal, meeting a friend, having a conversation, making a mistake, or discovering something new. Now, imagine describing it in English using feeling, detail, and perspective. This practice transforms daily life into language learning. Now, let's explore a deeper concept: self-awareness in communication. Self-awareness means noticing how you speak, how you listen, how you react, how you respond, and how your emotions influence your tone. Many misunderstandings in English and in life come not from vocabulary, but from lack of awareness. For example, someone interrupts because they're excited, not because they're rude. Someone stays quiet because they're thinking, not because they disagree. Someone asks questions because they're curious, not because they doubt you. Understanding intention helps communication become kinder, calmer, and more effective. Here's a useful advanced sentence starter. From what I understand, what you're saying is. This shows respect, attention, and clarity. 3 powerful communication skills. Now let's move into an area that helps listeners stay engaged: storytelling with purpose. In real conversations, stories are not random. They are meaningful. They illustrate ideas, provide context, and invite connection. Great storytellers don't just list events. They express emotion, reflection, and change. Let's look at a natural, advanced storytelling pattern. At first, I didn't understand the situation, but over time, things became clearer, and I realized how much I had grown because of it. This structure feels real because it mirrors human experience. Confusion, learning, growth. Now consider this question. Is there a moment in your life that taught you something important? Even thinking about the answer builds fluency because meaningful memories activate deeper vocabulary and emotional language. Now, let's shift into a topic that affects millions of learners: comparison. Many people compare their English to others, classmates, coworkers, influencers, native speakers, or strangers online. And comparison often leads to insecurity, not improvement. But here's the truth. Every learner has a different timeline, background, environment, purpose, personality, and learning style. Comparing your English to someone else's is like comparing two different journeys. A healthier approach is progress-based comparison. Am I communicating more confidently than I did last year? Do I understand more than I used to? Am I practicing more consistently now? Fluency is not measured by speed. It's measured by growth. Now let's talk about something essential: resilience. The ability to continue learning even when progress feels slow, when motivation drops, when mistakes happen, or when life becomes stressful. Resilience keeps you learning on days when inspiration disappears. Many fluent speakers didn't succeed because they were talented. They succeeded because they refused to quit. Here's an advanced expression to remember. Progress continues quietly, even when we don't notice it. Now, think about your own journey. You may not remember every lesson, every video, every sentence, every new word, but your brain does. Learning is cumulative. Knowledge builds, layer by layer, repetition after repetition. Before we continue, take a moment to appreciate yourself. You're still here, still listening, still learning, still growing. That consistency is powerful. Fluency isn't earned in one big moment. It's earned through small daily choices. So stay with me, stay open, stay patient, stay curious, stay confident. Every minute you listen strengthens your connection with English. Let's continue. Now, let's explore a topic that appears in almost every advanced conversation: change. Change can be exciting, uncomfortable, unpredictable, or necessary. People change careers, cities, relationships, habits, priorities, dreams, and perspectives. And every change creates a new chapter in life, often filled with emotions, uncertainty, and growth. When people talk about change in English, they rarely use simple sentences. They express reflection, hesitation, and meaning. For example, I wasn't ready for the change, but looking back, it turned out to be exactly what I needed. At first, I resisted it, but eventually I realized it helped me grow. It was scary, but staying the same felt even scarier. These sentences show emotional depth, not just information. Now think about your own life. Has anything changed recently? Your routine, mindset, responsibilities, or goals? How would you describe that change in English? Practicing personal storytelling builds confidence faster than memorizing vocabulary lists. Let's shift into another area that advanced learners often need: workplace communication. Many people around the world use English for professional purposes: meetings, presentations, interviews, teamwork, emails, negotiations, and problem solving. Workplace English requires clarity, respect, structure, and emotional control. Here are natural expressions used in professional conversations. Could you clarify what you mean by that? I understand your concern, and I'd like to offer another perspective. One possible solution might be to... Let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. These phrases help you communicate calmly and professionally without sounding aggressive, nervous, or uncertain. But professional English isn't only about speaking. Listening actively, summarizing information, giving feedback, asking thoughtful questions, and acknowledging others are equally important. For example, just to make sure I understand correctly, you're suggesting that... That's a valid point. Thank you for bringing it up. I appreciate the effort you put into this. These sentences build trust, something every workplace values. Now let's explore a topic that connects all humans: uncertainty. Life rarely goes exactly as planned. Opportunities appear unexpectedly. Goals evolve. Challenges arrive without warning. And many people struggle with not knowing what's next. Being able to express uncertainty naturally in English is a true sign of fluency. Here are some useful expressions. I'm not entirely sure yet, but I'm exploring my options. It's hard to predict, but I'm hopeful. I don't have all the answers, and that's okay. I'm learning to take things one step at a time. These sentences show maturity, emotional balance, and realistic thinking, qualities respected in both personal and professional conversations. Now let's turn to something that keeps conversations meaningful: empathy. Empathy means recognizing emotions, respecting experiences, and responding with care. It doesn't require agreement, only understanding. Empathy makes conversations warmer, safer, and more human. Here are natural empathetic responses. That sounds challenging. How are you coping with it? I can imagine that wasn't easy. Thank you for sharing that with me. I understand why you'd feel that way. These expressions turn conversation into connection. Now let's practice silently. Think of someone you know who recently faced a difficult situation. How would you respond in English in a compassionate, supportive, and respectful way? Practicing emotional communication strengthens fluency more than memorizing formal language. Now, let's explore something many learners struggle with: long, flowing answers. When someone asks, "How have you been?" or "What have you been thinking about recently?" many learners respond with only one short sentence. But fluent speakers expand naturally, using details, reflections, and examples. For instance, "I've been pretty good. Work has been busy, but in a productive way. I'm learning to balance things better, so it's been interesting." Notice how the answer includes context, emotion, and perspective. It feels alive, not robotic. To practice longer answers, use this structure. State the feeling, explain the reason, add a short reflection. Now, let's shift to something practical: conversational curiosity. Good conversations are not speeches, they're exchanges. People feel valued when others show interest in their thoughts, experiences, and beliefs. Here are questions fluent speakers use to continue conversations naturally. What makes you think that? How did you handle it? What did you take away from that experience? Would you do anything differently now? These questions are powerful because they invite deeper reflection, not just basic information. Now, let's explore a topic people often avoid: vulnerability. Vulnerability means expressing feelings honestly: fear, confusion, insecurity, disappointment, or hope. Many people think vulnerability is weakness, but in communication, vulnerability builds trust. For example, "I don't have everything figured out, but I'm trying. I'm still learning how to handle situations like this. Sometimes I feel unsure, but I'm doing my best." These statements show honesty and courage, two qualities that strengthen connection in any language. Now, let's talk about mindset, a topic that deeply affects fluency. Many learners believe fluency is a destination, something they will reach one day. But fluency is actually a lifestyle, a continuous process of learning, practicing, adjusting, and improving. There is no final moment when someone suddenly becomes fluent forever. A healthier perspective is, "I am becoming more fluent every day." This mindset allows progress to feel lighter, more enjoyable, and less pressured. Now let's explore a universally relatable topic: balance. Balancing work, rest, relationships, responsibilities, ambitions, and personal well-being is difficult for many people. And when life becomes unbalanced, communication suffers. People may become impatient, distracted, emotionally unavailable, or mentally overwhelmed. So, if you want to improve communication, sometimes the solution isn't more English practice, it's better life balance. Sleep, time management, relaxation, and emotional stability all influence your ability to express yourself clearly. Here are natural expressions related to balance. "I'm trying to slow down and take things one step at a time." "I've realized I need more rest than I thought." "I'm learning to prioritize what really matters." These statements show awareness and growth. Now, let's connect everything we've discussed so far: storytelling, emotion, reflection, curiosity, balance, change, and self-confidence into one idea. Fluency is not just the ability to speak English. Fluency is the ability to express your life in English. Your fears, joys, mistakes, dreams, values, relationships, questions, memories, and experiences, all of these deserve language. When you practice expressing real life instead of trying to sound perfect, fluency becomes natural. And the fact that you're still here, still listening, still learning, shows commitment, discipline, and inner motivation, qualities more important than vocabulary or grammar. So, take a breath, relax, and stay with me. We're going even deeper. And every minute you continue strengthens your fluency, confidence, and connection with English. Let's continue. Now, let's explore a theme that matters deeply in advanced English: cultural awareness. English is a global language, spoken by people from thousands of cultural backgrounds, belief systems, communication styles, and social environments. So, when you speak English, you're not just using vocabulary and grammar. You're participating in a multicultural conversation. For example, in some cultures, people communicate directly. They say exactly what they mean. In others, people speak indirectly, choosing softer language to avoid conflict or protect relationships. Neither style is right or wrong. They're simply different. Understanding these differences helps you communicate more respectfully and confidently. Let's imagine a situation. Someone says, "I'll think about it." In some cultures, that means "I'm interested." In others, it politely means "no." Advanced English requires not only hearing the words, but also recognizing the intention behind them. The more cultures you interact with, the more intuitive this becomes. Here's a useful reflection. Do you communicate more directly or indirectly in your native language? And does your style change when you speak English? Noticing your patterns helps you become a more flexible, confident communicator. Now, let's explore another powerful skill, paraphrasing. Paraphrasing means expressing the same idea using different words. Fluent speakers do this constantly. It helps them clarify meaning, avoid repetition, simplify complex ideas, or ensure understanding. For example, original. I didn't expect the meeting to last that long. Paraphrase. I was surprised the meeting continued for so much time. Same message, different expression. Paraphrasing shows vocabulary depth, mental flexibility, and active listening. Essential qualities for advanced communication. Now, let's shift into something deeply human, motivation. Motivation is not constant. It changes. It rises and falls. Some days, learning English feels exciting. Other days, it feels exhausting. And that's completely normal. The key to long-term fluency is not motivation, it's commitment. Commitment means continuing even on days when motivation is low. It means practicing for 5 minutes instead of skipping entirely. It means choosing progress over perfection. A powerful advanced expression captures this idea. Small, consistent effort leads to meaningful long-term change. Now, think about this question. What keeps you learning English even when it becomes challenging? Your answer reveals your inner drive, the fuel that keeps you moving forward. Now, let's talk about a topic that strengthens both communication and personal growth: reflection. Reflection means thinking about experiences, lessons, emotions, and decisions. It transforms daily life into learning. Fluent speakers naturally reflect while speaking. At first, I didn't understand, but now I see it more clearly. I used to think differently, but my perspective has changed. That experience taught me something valuable. Reflection deepens conversations because it reveals self-awareness, maturity, and emotional intelligence. Now let's practice silently. Think about something you learned recently, about life, work, relationships, or yourself. How would you describe that learning in English? Practicing reflection builds fluency without pressure. Now, let's explore something many learners want: speaking with confidence, even during disagreements. Disagreement is a normal part of human interaction. People have different opinions, experiences, values, and interpretations. The goal isn't to win the argument. The goal is to communicate clearly and respectfully. Here are polite disagreement phrases. I see your point, though I have a different perspective. That's interesting. I've never thought about it that way. I understand what you mean, but I'm not entirely convinced. I respect your opinion, though I see it differently. These expressions protect the relationship while allowing honest conversation, a crucial advanced skill. Now let's shift into something inspirational: personal evolution. People grow emotionally, mentally, professionally, and spiritually throughout life. They change priorities, beliefs, dreams, habits, and identities. Being able to express this change in English shows deep fluency. For example, I'm not who I used to be, and I'm grateful for that. My values have shifted as I've gained more life experience. I'm learning to let go of things that no longer serve me. These sentences express transformation, not just information. Now, ask yourself, how have you changed in the past 5 years? Your answer will shape powerful, meaningful English expression. Now, let's explore a powerful communication tool: thoughtful pauses. Many learners fear pauses, believing silence makes them look unprepared. But native speakers pause naturally. Pauses give space for thinking, understanding, and emotional processing. They make speech sound more confident, not less. You can use expressions like, "Let me think for a moment." "That's a good question. Give me a second." "If I really reflect on it." These phrases show calmness and presence, two important qualities in advanced speaking. Next, let's talk about something essential for connection: storytelling through emotion. People don't remember every detail of a story. They remember how it made them feel. So instead of only describing events, describe emotions. "I felt relieved." "I was completely surprised." "It made me feel appreciated." "I didn't know how to respond at first." These emotional details turn simple sentences into meaningful communication. Now, let's explore something practical: conversational sustainability. Many learners worry about starting conversations, but the real challenge is keeping them alive. And one of the most effective ways to continue conversation is showing genuine interest. Here are simple but powerful follow-up questions. How did that make you feel? What happened after that? What do you think you'll do next? What would you change if you could? These questions make the other person feel valued, and that feeling keeps conversations going. Now let's talk about the relationship between language and identity. When people learn English, they sometimes feel like a different version of themselves: more cautious, more serious, more formal, or less expressive. This happens because language shapes personality. The more comfortable you become with English, the more your true personality enters the language. Humor, sarcasm, warmth, curiosity, creativity, confidence, spontaneity. So if English still feels like a mask, don't worry. With exposure, time, and emotional comfort, it becomes a mirror, reflecting who you truly are. Before we continue, take a moment to appreciate your effort. You've been listening, absorbing, processing, reflecting, and staying mentally present, all of which strengthen comprehension and fluency. This kind of long-form listening practice trains the brain deeply, and very few learners commit to it consistently. So, stay with me. You're doing meaningful work, and it will pay off sooner than you think. Let's continue. Now, let's explore something that strengthens both language and emotional well-being: gratitude. In many conversations, people focus on what's missing, what's stressful, or what isn't going well. But fluent speakers also express appreciation, recognition, and positive reflection. Gratitude creates warmth, connection, and sincerity, qualities that make communication more meaningful. Here are natural gratitude expressions. "I really appreciate your help." "That meant a lot to me. Thank you." "I'm grateful for the chance to talk about this." "I value your honesty." These sentences are simple but powerful. They show emotional awareness, a key part of advanced fluency. Now let's move to a topic that inspires motivation: imagination and possibility. English isn't only used to describe the past or present. It's also used to dream, plan, and create the future. Fluent speakers often express hope, curiosity, and ambition. For example, "One day, I'd love to live abroad. I'm interested in exploring a new career path. I'm curious to see where life takes me. I'm working towards something meaningful. These expressions show direction, not pressure. So ask yourself, what do you want English to make possible in your life? Your answer can guide your learning more than any textbook. Now, let's talk about creativity, a skill sometimes ignored in language learning. Many learners memorize sentences but rarely create new ones. But creativity, inventing examples, imagining scenarios, building stories, expressing opinions, strengthens fluency dramatically. Try practicing like this. What would happen if? How would I react in that situation? What advice would I give someone else? Creativity turns English into a living language, not just a subject. Now, let's explore something essential: emotional regulation while communicating. Even native speakers sometimes speak too quickly, interrupt, overreact, or misunderstand when stressed. Communication requires calmness, especially during disagreements or high-pressure moments. Useful expressions include, "Let me slow down for a second." "I want to understand you clearly." "Could we talk about this more calmly?" "Give me a moment to process that." These phrases prevent conflict and protect relationships, a truly advanced skill. Now let's shift to a deeply human theme: belonging. People learn languages not only for information, but for connection. Everyone wants to be understood, welcomed, included, and accepted. English can help build friendships, join communities, share stories, and feel part of something larger than yourself. So instead of asking, "How can I sound perfect?" try asking, "How can I connect with others more genuinely?" Because connection is the real purpose of language. Now, let's talk about discipline, an underrated part of fluency. Many learners wait for motivation, but fluent speakers rely on habits. They practice a little every day, not because they always feel inspired, but because they value progress. Consider these simple habits: 10 minutes of listening before sleep, thinking in English while cooking, shadowing one conversation per day, writing one sentence about your feelings, asking one reflective question in English. These tiny actions seem small, but over time they build unstoppable momentum. Now let's explore perspective, the ability to understand multiple viewpoints. Advanced speakers don't just express their opinion, they acknowledge complexity. For example, "On one hand, I understand the concern, but on the other hand, I see the benefits. I can see why some people feel that way, even though my experience is different." This kind of balanced communication shows maturity, respect, and emotional intelligence. Now, here's a refreshing reminder: you don't need to be perfect to be understood. Fluency doesn't mean speaking like a native speaker. It means expressing yourself clearly, confidently, and authentically. Your accent, your background, your culture, your personality, these are strengths, not weaknesses. They make your English unique, human, and valuable. So instead of thinking, "My English isn't good enough," try thinking, "My English is improving every day, and I'm proud of that." Finally, take a moment, right now, to recognize how far you've come. You've listened, stayed focused, reflected, imagined, learned new structures, absorbed emotional language, and strengthened your ability to think in English. Many people never commit this deeply, but you did. So breathe in, feel calm, stay present, and stay with me. The journey continues, and every minute you choose to listen brings you closer to the confident, natural, fluent English you're working toward. Let's continue. Now, let's explore a theme that often separates intermediate speakers from truly advanced communicators: intention. In every conversation, there are two layers: what someone says and why they're saying it. Fluent speakers listen not only to the words, but to the purpose behind them: curiosity, frustration, excitement, confusion, insecurity, gratitude, or support. When you respond to intention, not just language, conversations become deeper and more meaningful. For example, if someone says, "I'm so tired of everything lately," they're not asking for advice about sleep. They're expressing emotional exhaustion. A natural response might be, "That sounds overwhelming. Do you want to talk about it?" Understanding intention builds connection, trust, and empathy. Essential elements of advanced communication. Now let's shift into something extremely useful: describing nuance. Nuance means subtle differences in meaning, emotion, or perspective. Fluent speakers rarely speak in extremes. Always, never, perfect, terrible. Instead, they soften or specify their ideas. It's not ideal, but it's manageable. I wouldn't say it's urgent, but it's important. I'm not completely sure, but I have a general idea. These expressions make communication more accurate, thoughtful, and realistic. Next, let's explore how storytelling strengthens fluency. Human brains remember stories better than isolated facts because stories include emotion, tension, detail, and meaning. When you tell a story in English, even a small one, you practice vocabulary, grammar, timing, pacing, tone, expression, and clarity all at once. Try using this simple storytelling structure: what happened, how you felt, why it mattered. Example: I was nervous before the interview, but afterward, I felt proud because I realized how much progress I've made. That single sentence contains emotion, growth, and reflection, powerful elements of natural speech. Now, let's talk about energy, something often overlooked in communication. Fluency isn't only about word choice. It's also about tone, rhythm, pace, volume, enthusiasm, and emotional presence. Two people can say the same sentence, but one sounds confident and engaging while the other sounds uncertain. Practicing intonation, rising and falling voice, helps conversations feel more natural, expressive, and alive. Next, let's explore a universal challenge: overthinking. Many learners mentally translate, analyze, or judge every sentence before speaking. But fluent speakers don't think about every word. They think about meaning, emotion, and intention. The language follows naturally. To reduce overthinking, try speaking with curiosity rather than self-criticism. Instead of asking, "Is this correct?" ask, "Does this express what I mean?" Now, let's talk about openness, a powerful communication skill. Openness means welcoming new ideas, perspectives, cultures, and experiences. It doesn't mean agreeing with everything. It means listening without defensiveness. Fluent speakers often say, "That's an interesting point. Tell me more. I hadn't considered it from that angle. Could you explain how you see it?" These responses encourage dialogue instead of shutting it down. Now, let's explore a deeper theme: emotional courage. Speaking another language requires vulnerability. You risk misunderstandings, mistakes, silence, or judgment. But every time you speak anyway, you build courage. Not just linguistic courage, but life courage. The ability to express yourself, even when you don't feel perfectly prepared, is a skill that helps far beyond language learning. So, here's a powerful reminder. You don't have to be confident to speak. Speaking is what creates confidence. Now, take a moment to recognize what you're doing right now. Actively listening, processing, understanding, imagining, reflecting, growing. This is real fluency practice, and very few people commit this deeply or consistently. So stay with me. Your English is becoming stronger, more natural, more expressive, and more human with every minute. Let's continue. Now, let's explore a topic that almost every learner and every human being can relate to: the tension between who you are today and who you want to become. This tension is not a weakness, it's a sign of growth. Advanced speakers often talk about identity in motion, not identity as a fixed state. Instead of saying, "This is who I am," they say, "I'm becoming someone who," or "I'm learning to," or "I'm working toward." These structures communicate progress instead of limitation. They show that you're not stuck, you're evolving. For example, I'm learning to communicate more confidently in professional situations. I'm becoming someone who handles stress more calmly. I'm working toward creating healthier routines. Notice how these sentences carry direction, not judgment. They are realistic, forward-looking, and emotionally grounded. Exactly the kind of language used in natural, meaningful English conversations. Now, let's shift into another powerful communication skill: awareness of emotional timing. Knowing when to speak matters just as much as knowing what to say. Fluent speakers pay attention to tone, body language, pauses, energy, and context. Sometimes silence is wiser than a response. Sometimes validation matters more than advice. Sometimes asking a thoughtful question communicates more than sharing an opinion. For example, if a friend says, "I've had a really tough day," a fluent emotional response might be, "Do you want to talk about it, or would you rather relax for now?" This shows emotional intelligence, respect, and sensitivity, the foundation of advanced communication. Now, let's talk about patience, something crucial for both life and language learning. Many learners expect fluency to arrive like a sudden transformation, but real fluency is not a dramatic moment. It is a quiet accumulation of exposure, repetition, curiosity, reflection, mistakes, adjustments, and small breakthroughs. You don't notice progress day by day, but over months you speak more smoothly, listen more effortlessly, and express more honestly. Here's a helpful mindset. You won't remember every new expression, but your brain will. Even when you forget words, your subconscious is learning. Understanding comes before speaking, and speaking comes before confidence. Progress is happening even when you don't feel it. Now, let's explore confidence, not as a personality trait, but as a habit. Confidence grows through action, not theory. It grows when you speak, even if you're nervous, when you ask a question, even if you're unsure, when you continue learning, even after making mistakes. Confidence isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to keep going despite fear. A natural advanced expression that captures this idea is, confidence comes from evidence, the evidence that you've done hard things before. And you have, including learning a language millions of people fear trying. Now, let's shift to something more practical: building advanced vocabulary naturally. You don't need to memorize lists of complex words. Instead, pay attention to language that repeatedly appears in podcasts, interviews, films, books, and real conversations. Expressions like, to be completely honest, at the end of the day, for the most part, as far as I can tell, from a broader perspective, are used constantly by fluent speakers, not because they sound impressive, but because they help organize thoughts clearly. The more frequently you hear these phrases, the more naturally they will appear in your own speaking. Now, let's explore something people rarely talk about: emotional fluency. Emotional fluency means expressing feelings with honesty, specificity, and balance. Instead of saying, "I'm fine," fluent speakers might say, "I'm doing okay, just a bit overwhelmed." "I'm feeling more hopeful today." "I'm tired, but in a good way." These phrases communicate more than emotional status. They invite connection. Emotional honesty deepens relationships and builds trust. Next, let's talk about authenticity, the courage to sound like yourself in English. Many learners try to imitate native speakers perfectly, but fluency is not imitation. Fluency is personalization. Your humor, your rhythm, your perspective, your voice. Those are your strengths. Advanced English is not about losing your identity. It's about expressing your identity more clearly. Now, let's explore a subtle yet powerful communication skill: expressing appreciation. Gratitude strengthens relationships, increases positivity, and improves workplace communication. Native speakers use gratitude often, but not dramatically. Instead, they express it simply and sincerely. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I really appreciate your help. That means a lot to me. Practicing gratitude in English not only improves fluency, it improves connection. Now, let's shift into a topic that helps keep conversations alive: curiosity. Curiosity is the engine of communication. Asking thoughtful questions shows interest, respect, and engagement. For example, what made you feel that way? How did that experience change you? What do you think will happen next? These types of questions lead to deeper, richer conversations rather than short, transactional ones. Now, let's explore resilience, the ability to continue learning even when progress feels slow or invisible. Every learner experiences plateaus, moments where improvement seems to pause. But plateaus are not failure, they are preparation. Your brain is organizing knowledge, strengthening connections, and building automatic recall. The progress will return, and when it does, it will feel effortless. A helpful mindset is, fluency doesn't reward speed, it rewards consistency. Now, let's talk about presence, being mentally engaged, not just physically present. Presence is listening fully, responding thoughtfully, noticing tone, breathing calmly, and treating conversations not as tasks, but as opportunities to learn, connect, and understand. Presence makes communication meaningful, respectful, and memorable. Before we move toward closing, take a moment to recognize what you've been doing throughout this video. Not multitasking, not rushing, but dedicating your attention, your curiosity, and your energy to improving your English. That commitment is rare, valuable, and admirable. Most people want fluency. Very few invest in it. And you are. Let's continue. Now, let's explore something every learner experiences, no matter their age, background, or native language. The moment when English finally starts to feel natural. It doesn't happen all at once. It usually appears quietly, in small moments. Maybe you understand a podcast without subtitles for the first time. Maybe someone asks you a question in English and you answer without thinking. Maybe you read something complex and realize you didn't translate it in your head. These quiet victories are signs of real fluency. Many learners underestimate these moments because they seem small, but they are actually breakthroughs. They show that English has moved from effort into intuition. And once language reaches intuition, it becomes part of who you are. That is the turning point most advanced learners dream of. Now, let's shift into a skill crucial for both language learning and life: reflection. Reflection means not just experiencing something, but learning from it. After a conversation, you can ask yourself, what helped me express myself clearly? What slowed me down? What words or phrases would have made that easier? What can I try differently next time? This type of self-awareness helps you grow faster and more intentionally. Fluent speakers aren't fluent because they never make mistakes. They're fluent because they reflect, adjust, and continue practicing. Now, let's explore something deeply human: the search for belonging. People everywhere want to feel understood, included, and accepted. Language is not only a communication tool, it's a bridge to belonging. When you speak someone's language, you step into their world. You access their humor, their emotions, their culture, their rhythm, their stories. English opens doors, not just to opportunities, but to relationships, communities, and experiences. So, when learning feels difficult, remember this: you're not just learning words, you're expanding your world. Now, let's talk about something most people don't realize. Fluency doesn't depend on how many words you know. It depends on how comfortably you use the words you already know. A learner with 3,000 active words who speaks confidently is more fluent than someone with 15,000 passive words who rarely speaks. Fluency lives in usage, not storage. That's why repeated exposure matters so much. Hearing, speaking, shadowing, thinking aloud. These are not extra activities. They are the foundation of fluency. Now, let's explore resilience, a skill every successful language learner must develop. Some days you feel like you're improving rapidly. Other days you feel stuck, slow, or frustrated. But progress is not supposed to be linear. Real learning looks like a staircase: flat steps followed by sudden climbs. Instead of asking, "Why am I not improving faster?" ask, "How can I stay consistent even when progress feels invisible?" That question shifts your mindset from impatience to strategy, and strategy always leads to results. Now, let's move into something incredibly important: self-compassion. Many learners speak to themselves more harshly than they would ever speak to another person. They say things like, "My English is terrible. I'll never sound natural. I always make mistakes." But mistakes are not signs of failure. They are evidence of courage. Every mistake proves you're speaking, trying, learning, and growing. Fluent speakers make mistakes too. They just don't let those mistakes define them. A healthier, more advanced response would be, "I made a mistake," which means I'm actively practicing. That mindset turns embarrassment into progress. Now, let's explore vulnerability, not emotional weakness, but emotional strength. Vulnerability means speaking up even if you're unsure. It means trying even if you might fail. It means leaving your comfort zone because growth requires discomfort. Vulnerability is not a barrier to fluency. It is the path to fluency. Every confident English speaker today was once a nervous beginner, but they kept going not because they weren't afraid, but because they moved forward despite fear. Now, let's talk about storytelling, not in a dramatic or fictional sense, but in daily conversations. People connect through stories, not information. When someone asks, "How was your weekend?" they're not asking for a schedule. They're asking for a story, a feeling, a moment, a reflection. Advanced speakers don't answer with, "It was fine." They answer with, "It was relaxing. I spent some time outdoors and it helped me reset." This gives the listener something to respond to, inviting connection, not ending conversation. Now, let's address something many learners secretly struggle with: comparison. In today's digital world, it's easy to compare your English to someone else's. Their accent, their vocabulary, their confidence, their opportunities. But comparison steals motivation, energy, and joy. Instead of asking, "Why am I not like them?" ask, "What progress have I made that my past self would be proud of?" That question restores perspective and empowers growth. Now, let's transition into a concept that influences language, relationships, and well-being: emotional energy. Every conversation requires emotional energy: listening, responding, empathizing, thinking. These actions take mental effort. Some conversations leave you energized and inspired. Others leave you drained or tense. Advanced communicators learn to recognize and manage emotional energy. They ask themselves, "Is this conversation helping me grow, connect, or understand?" If the answer is yes, they stay engaged. If the answer is no, they step back gracefully, not to avoid communication, but to protect their emotional well-being. Now, let's explore adaptability. The ability to adjust your communication style depending on the situation. In English, tone matters. The language you use with close friends is different from what you use at work, in interviews, or with strangers. Advanced speakers switch naturally between casual, neutral, and professional English. For example, casual. "Yeah, totally. I get what you mean." Neutral. "I understand your point." Professional. "That's a valid perspective, and I appreciate you sharing it." The message is the same, but the tone shifts depending on context. This flexibility is a key marker of true fluency. Now, let's reflect on something simple but powerful. English may not be your first language, but it is becoming one of your voices. And every voice deserves space, respect, and confidence. We're approaching the end of this session, so let's bring everything together in a meaningful and encouraging way. If you've stayed with this video until now, you've proven something important. You are committed, disciplined, curious, motivated, and capable of reaching high levels of fluency. Most learners stop early. You stayed. That alone sets you apart. So, as we close, take a breath and recognize the effort you've invested. Every minute of listening, repeating, reflecting, and practicing matters. Now, here is your final reminder. Fluency is not a destination. It is a lifelong relationship with the language. Some days it feels effortless. Other days it feels challenging. But as long as you keep showing up, you will continue growing. Thank you for spending your time with me here on English in Motion. If this lesson helped you, feel free to like the video and subscribe for more. Keep practicing, Keep believing in yourself, and I'll see you in the next session.